All right. Well, listen, if you can't already tell by that introduction, we are without Ollie King. And welcome to episode 11 of the TrackSide podcast, in which I am figuring out our recording platform for the very first time. I had a countdown of five and it's just started. So there you go. But Will, it's good to see you. As you can see, I am back, but we are unfortunately without Mr. Ollie King, which is a shame, really, because it was a great weekend in Barcelona.
Yeah, it's trackside protocol really. If someone's on holiday, we always say, you know, make the most of it. Just don't worry about it. We did it last year for me. Um, we've done it. We done it for you last week as well. It's just protocol. If you're on holiday, then don't worry about it. But yeah, it's a shame because F2 was there and the feeder series was there, and for me and you, being as both busy as we are, we didn't really have the chance to go over it and stuff like that. There is one thing I did want to go over about F2,
Okay.
just because I saw it was a cool little story. Is it Juan Manuel Correa? Is that how you say his name?
It is, and it's a good
Yeah,
story. And I know the story you're going to tell, but it unfortunately does end a little bit sour.
yeah, it does. But basically, for the those of you who don't know, 2019 involved in that massive accident, which unfortunately took the life of Antoine Hubert at Spa. But the part that people don't know is Correa nearly had his leg amputated as well. They said that they strongly advised to do leg amputation. He said no, and I think it was after 48 surgeries or something like that, an extortionate amount. They repaired his leg together. They put his leg back together, and within now it's 5 years, went back through F3, struggled at F2 last year, and has now been back on the podium for the first time since. And that was this weekend. But yes, as you said, ended a bit sour, didn't it?
Fortunately, so because he ended up getting a penalty, which put him back down to P8. But at least he managed to, have that podium experience, and I imagine it will just sort of relight that fire in his belly to, to go and chase more. But you are right, and I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I mean that's one hell of a story. It really is.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, that. Even though I didn't keep up with the feeder series this weekend, I was like, that's got to be spoke about because when the thing is, when everyone talks about that crash with Hubert, you always think about him and
Mm.
stuff like that. But you don't really cast your mind to the other drivers involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, when it happened as well, no one really heard about Correa's side of it, and because he's the car that actually hit Antoine, so it's emotionally and physically so upsetting for him because of what's happened, and
Mm.
also the damages to him as well. And it's just a really like nice way that the stories come full circle. Obviously, it's awful because of what actually happened, but the way that there's been some light from it is
Yeah.
is always a good thing. It's
No, I
always a good
totally
thing.
agree with that. Very well said, Will. Um, so obviously we'll move into the Spanish Grand Prix weekend regarding Formula One. Um, it was my birthday on Sunday.
It was
Happy
your
birthday
birthday.
to me, 20th birthday. So I actually went out and watched the Spanish Grand Prix in a sports bar, which was really nice. I got to be honest with you. First time as well I've ever watched a Formula One race where the company around are also there to watch the race. So it was hilarious. I've been watching Formula One 10 plus years, since 2011, as I've said many a times before. But the first time there was ever a collective like, ooh, wow, or
Mm,
like there was a crowd physically there watching the race as well. Like I know I've been to a race before
yeah.
in grandstands, but in terms of just watching it on a TV and you see an overtake that you might just think, wow, but you've got about maybe 50 other people in there going and like whoa and all that, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So that was quite fun. And then I went to F1 Arcade after as well, which obviously I've been dying to go to for ages, and I had a great time there as well. That was good fun. I did get a little bit cocky because I went with my mate and I played the first two races on the rookie level. We both did, and then I said because I'd beaten him, I was like, "Oh, do you know what? I'll go up one and you stay on rookie." But I got a little bit too cocky and I went up to semi-pro, and all of a sudden I came last because it wasn't so. They said that semi-pro, you've got to brake a bit harder, and obviously traction control, and obviously no. Every time I'm coming out a corner, foot straight back down on the throttle, and I'm doing like 360 loops, and I just can't get anywhere. And I was like, gutted. But it was good
Yeah,
because they manually pick the tracks. They automatically manually they automatically pick the tracks for you. So we did Suzuka, Silverstone, and Zandvoort, which I think are pretty good tracks to do. Uh,
yeah. Variety there, decent variety of tracks there. I know
yeah,
you love the fact that you did Silverstone.
no, I did, mate, because I won it as well. Like, as in, not just beat my mate, but I won. I won the race, so which I was pretty
Yeah,
happy
that's
about.
cool.
Although to be fair, Logan Sargent did come second. So realistically, probably not. That.
In an alternate universe.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that was good fun.
Mm.
And also as well, like you don't pick obviously your own driver with your name, but you don't pick like the team you drive for. And obviously all the cars will have the same level of ability. But I still got put in a Mercedes. Can you believe that?
Oh, here he is. He loved it.
I still
He
got put in a
loved it.
Mercedes. And then my mate got put in an Aston Martin. So yeah, that was good. I really enjoyed it. Did like the other sort of stuff they have as well and around the bar, like the reaction time one, or like the the one where it's like they've got the buttons sort of laid out around a track and you've got to click the different ones. So overall, that was really fun and I enjoyed it. But the Spanish Grand Prix, it also made me laugh as well because I've only ever watched two races. Well, three races if you include the one I went to, Silverstone 2016. But I've only ever watched two races out and about where it's not
Yeah.
been just at home on the TV or at the flat or whatever. And it was the Spanish Grand Prix this year and the Spanish Grand Prix last year. It seems to be a little bit of a thing. Maybe the Spanish Grand Prix every year, I need to make it like my own Monaco where I go big or something and just
You need to do something, yeah.
do something for it. But it was a good race. So I want to talk to you about team specific and we'll go through their qualifying and we'll go through their race. Let's start with McLaren because it's funny, really. I feel as though when we speak about McLaren, we still sort of hold their name to everything they're doing. Wow, they've come on leaps and bounds. The reality is now we're going to Austria next week, or well, this week, and it will now be one full calendar year or one full racing year, if you will, since they basically stepped up a notch and started delivering. So should we really be
Yeah.
talking about McLaren now as this, wow, they've turned it around so much team, or should we be talking about McLaren as they're doing great, but they need to start doing a little bit more? Saying that, Lando Norris did get pole position. Talk me through it.
I I do agree with you. It's coming up to a calendar year since they bought those upgrades in and we had that outstanding burst of pace. But they are now, let's be honest, they are now the fastest car on the grid. It is
Mm.
the fastest car on the grid on one lap pure pace, low fuel, hot lap. It is the fastest car on the grid. So you do start having to wonder if they have the fastest car on the grid, wins should be, you think on paper, fastest car on the grid means you're going to win easily.
Well,
Exactly. Are we now starting to see that maybe this is where it could be that we see Max Verstappen now realise, right, I am at a disadvantage now, and how he reacts. Do we see him crumble, or do we see him rise to it?
I think, well, to be fair, two times now, I would say he has risen to the challenge. The first one being
Yeah,
Canada and the second one being this weekend.
and even in quali, he looked rapid. Like going into quali, the whole talk was, we've got four teams battling for the lead now. We've got Ferrari, Mercedes. You've got Ferrari with Leclerc or Sainz. Mercedes. I am going to say this. Mercedes with George Russell because I just think we'll go on to Mercedes because they had even before the weekend happened, there was a lot to talk about that. You've got McLaren with Lando and obviously Red Bull with Max. And, the whole talk going into it was who's going to take pole? Who's going to take pole? And in the end, yeah, Lando put a stellar lap together. I think the final sector was where he absolutely found time. Again, people we love a good last sector that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think then, I mean, Piastri done well. He was on for a fast lap as well, but then obviously went wide. So you could have had a McLaren 1-2, to be fair. Like Piastri could have been right up there as well. So on paper, that McLaren car is best on the grid. And then now it just comes to whether they can actually convert it into race wins.
I think as well, on the topic of McLaren, speaking of the fact they got pole position, that was brilliant considering the fire that they had pre-qualifying as well in the motorhome. Thankfully, no one was injured. I think one team member was taken to hospital for precaution, and thankfully they were discharged on the same day and they were all okay.
Yeah, it was
But
like smoke inhalation or something like that. It
yeah,
wasn't anything serious. Yeah.
I mean, for the remainder of the weekend, they weren't able to use their motorhome. I think I heard Zach Brown say like the kitchen was totally off limit, but it was nice that all sort of the F1 grid and community sort of came together and was like offering them hospitality elsewhere and saying that you can come here for this, you can come here to do that, which was really nice as well. But it obviously didn't distract Lando Norris in the slightest because he put it straight on pole.
Yeah, it's incredible. Again, it's one of those magical stories in F1, really, isn't it? How something bad can happen, and then you see the hope in the grid and like the passion that the grid has for each other. And even though it gets heated in the cars sometimes, and that they all do, well, most of them all do respect and like each other. Do you know what I mean? It's quite nice that the F1 community now is one family rather than what it used to be, where drivers and teams hate each other. Like if this had happened in maybe like the early 2000s or the 90s or something like that, that probably you wouldn't have the grid coming together like that. But it is really nice. But do you want to move into the race for McLaren?
Well, I
Because
was just going to mention about Piastri's qualifying and how obviously he got to Q3, but his first lap time was deleted, and then the second one he went into the gravel, meaning that he didn't actually get to set a proper time in the end. So he was P10. Obviously, with Perez's penalty carried over from Canada, it meant he started P9. But yeah, moving into the race, moving into the race weekend, I feel as though you're going to maybe want to talk about Lando Norris because it might come under something you've said before about him.
well, funny you were thinking that, because as soon as the race finished, and it got to the point where even the commentary team was saying it, Lando Norris had everything there to not only challenge Max, but had the Grand Prix in his hand.
Hmm.
And once again, it goes back to what I said. And I know what I said. I know what I said. It came straight back to bite me the week later. But I'll say it again. And now I'll say it with backup. The reason he won that race in Miami was because of the safety car. Because of how the safety car played out. Okay? Don't get me wrong, the restart was good, but the reason he had that advantage was because of the safety car. Straight off the bat, straight dogfight between Max and Lando. Lando crumbled. Completely off the start, Lando crumbled. And throughout then the race, was chasing Max. And also then got stuck behind both Mercedes cars. Couldn't make the pass quick enough. Lost easily 4 to 5 seconds, which then in the last 5-6 laps, he was then trying to make up. And he got it all the way down. I think the final gap when they crossed the line was, I think, 1.8 seconds. He was absolutely flying. But you think, if you'd have got that done earlier, or had maybe done more in the opening phase, you could have been standing on that top step of the podium.
Yeah,
But,
well, he
like
finished
I
two.
said,
Yeah, he finished 2.2 seconds behind, but he came out and, or maybe it was one of the commentators that said that he should have finished 2.2 ahead.
yeah,
And it came down to
he
those
should have.
fine margins of the bad start.
The bad start, and then also not being able to pass the Mercedes. He was stuck behind George Russell for 3 laps.
Hmm.
Like you can't do that. Like if you want to challenge for the win, you need to be aggressive off the start and stuff like that. But it'll go back to what I said. I don't think he has the bottle. I still don't. don't get me wrong, the win in Miami was fantastic, but I think it was more gifted rather than earned.
But what do you say though about his pole position though? Where would that sort of fall into what you think of him? Because it's only his second one.
So it shows that he has incredible one lap pace. But in terms of the thing is though, when you're doing qualifying, is you're not thinking about the race. You're just thinking about, okay, where is the margins for me? You're not thinking about where's the margins for the other drivers. You're not taking in the only person you're taking into consideration is yourself. When you're actually racing, you need to switch from that and to think, right, I need to worry about the person on my left. I need to worry about the person on my right. I also need to worry about where there's so many things going on in your brain, and you kind of need to merge it all together and make sure you still come out on top, rather than only focusing on one area and then forgetting who's on your left, forgetting who's on your right, where they're going to be, and or prioritising one of that. He prioritised coming over and stopping Max straight away, and that obviously then meant that he didn't get the best launch. I think you see the launch;
How
he's
many
very
times have I said
slow
it
to
before?
react.
How many times have I said it before? Where cars that angle, I've never understood it because you get a slower start.
Yeah, why? He's on the racing line. He has the racing line into turn one. He should have just gone straight, but because he's now not thinking about all those things put together, he's just thinking about Max, which is fair. Like it must be pretty intimidating. Don't get me wrong, but because he's just thinking about Max, it's and he's not thinking about himself at the same time. It's ruined him. And because he comes over, sacrifices the racing line, loses it into turn one.
And Oscar Piastri, he finished seventh. I don't think it'll be a weekend he's too pleased with. And considering the constructors' championship, I think this year, to be fair, with 12 races still to go, no, 14 races still to go.
14 races, yeah.
Sorry, biggest season ever, 24. 14 races still to go. Constructors' championship's wide open, really, for anyone. Probably not the best weekend for his side of the garage.
Yeah, but Spain is a difficult track to overtake. They say there's like a lot of overtaking opportunities. I don't think there really is. There's down into turn one, and then that's about it. But Oscar's young. He's 19?
No,
19, 20?
he's
How
not
old is
19
he?
years old.
How
What?
old is he?
Well, he's not. Oscar Piastri's, I think, like 21, 22.
Oh, okay,
19
right.
years old. You
I
thought
thought he
Oscar
was
Piastri was
19.
younger than us?
Well, yeah. Um.
No,
Okay, so
the only driver that's ever
he's.
raced in F1 younger than us is Ollie Beerman.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Oscar is 20. I think he's 22. I think he's 21, 22, like you say. And he's still young. He's still doing incredible. Like you can't take. You look at the results he's had. He's finished constantly, basically all season within the top eight, and I think I think just one P7 isn't the worst thing for McLaren
No, of course
considering
not. Of course
they
not.
made
Just
bout back.
yeah, just I think mainly because McLaren realistically had the quickest car this weekend. I think to finish behind both Mercedes and Ferraris, I think he'll be a little bit disappointed with that. But nevertheless,
If
I
it
mean,
had been if it had been like the Mercedes and Ferrari that we've seen at the start of the season and he finished behind them, we'd be like, oh, that's pretty poor. That's a pretty poor showing. But because it's now, like I said, it's the four-way fight between the teams. It's kind of understandable.
yeah, I think as well with young Oscar, I had him on my predictions to get pole in qualifying. I just felt as though he'd be kind of like a dark horse, and it's annoying that I didn't actually get to see his last Q3 run. I'm not saying he would have been on pole; he wasn't setting purple sectors, but where he could have positioned himself on that last lap, he maybe could have been ahead of the Ferraris, maybe ahead of a George Russell. So, and then that would have obviously
It could have helped Lando a lot. Yeah,
yeah, but
it would have
nevertheless,
been able to.
that was McLaren's weekend, and definitely not the worst. I think they'll take a lot of positive from it, from obviously a pole position. another P2, another podium for them. So that's really good. Moving on to Red Bull. Now, of course, Max Verstappen, as we've mentioned there, P2, he was only 20/100ths off of pole position. Came as a little bit of a shock, but then that is now the first time, Will, since 2012 that there have been 4 different pole position holders in 4 consecutive races.
Yeah, and like I said, that just shows the competitive nature of the grid now, which is good for us as a sport. Obviously, we aren't Sunday as much, but on a Saturday, you go into a Saturday now and you have no idea who's going to come out on top. It's nice that the game is back, shall we say? It's not gone like it was, but yeah, I think another stellar job all weekend from Max. Like even though the second place lap itself, it wasn't slow, it was rapid, and I think I still don't know how they've renewed Perez's contract for next year. I still don't get it. I still do. It doesn't make sense to me at all how they've done
Yeah, I mean, again, so as I referenced earlier on, he had his three race grid penalty carried over from last year, meaning that realistically he would have wanted a strong qualifying so he could still be starting somewhere near the front. He qualified at P8, so I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but actually he did make it into Q3, which is something for him because it's not as regular as you'd expect it to be. It meant he started P11. And I think I remember when I was sitting in the bar watching the race and just within like the first sort of 10, 15 laps and seeing he's still in and around where he started, like 11th to 10th. I don't get it. The car he has at his disposal, we know it is not identically the same as Max's, right? But it is still a Red Bull racing car. How he doesn't manage to extract out anything out of the car. It's not even like it's his first year and he's still trying to get, he's been there now since 2021, not missed a single race. Will, why is he struggling?
Because he doesn't have it anymore. I always think the only reason why Perez was ever put in that seat was because of that win in Sakir, the Sakir Grand Prix win. That's the only reason why.
That will definitely be the main thing from it.
But if you look on merit at other situations, if you go back, has he ever done much to really earn that seat in general? I'll keep it. Like, yes, there was a couple of wins in 2022 and obviously helping Max in 2021. But apart from that, is there a reason why they're holding him?
You're yawning even thinking about him still being an F1.
Is there a reason why he has that seat, like such tight grip on that seat? I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
I think we will probably say it till the cows come home that he got that 2-year deal to keep Max happy. I think everyone sort of knows that now. Red Bull can't even really hide it because Perez is not doing them any favours by continuously finishing below par.
No,
which
especially in the constructors as well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and we'll go through that at the end of the episode. But Max Verstappen, I don't want to make myself say this every single week because then I'm repeating myself and it's repetitive. But I have said that all the sort of other wins that he was having, sort of 2022, 2023, and the sort of the start of this year, they were wins that I couldn't. You have to appreciate because he's winning them races, but I couldn't fully get behind them because I felt as though it was too easy for him. He'd run away with it. He would have no sort of competition. It was hard for me to sort of see, yeah, okay, it's great that, he wins these races, but how do we really know if he's the best if he's not challenged? But my goodness, these last sort of races, Canada specifically, and now Spain, he's earned them. And he's earned them big time. And you can see that the fact, I think he knows that as well, because all these other races I mentioned previously would never be big on the radio. Once he gets out the car, he just sort of high five his team. But these last 2 races specifically, big yeses on the radio, jumping straight into the mechanics and that in Park Fermi. Like, you can see that even he knows he's having to fight for it now. And even if, like he is 60, I think 61 or something odd points ahead in the championship, and most people think he probably got it wrapped up again this year, in my eyes, this would be a championship, if it continues the way it's going, thoroughly deserved and probably his best one.
Yeah, absolutely. The last two races have been a very much a staple point for Max to say, look, listen, I know the critics. I know everyone said I've had this easy and there's been no challenge, but now there is challenge. What are you saying now? Basically, it's very much him. It's very much him putting a marker down. Like, okay, I'm aware of the critics. I know that it hasn't been easy, but now you can't question my ability because of what
No.
I'm doing now, and you have to applaud him. You have to applaud him because he's getting every inch and raw pace out of that car that he can, and the driving is flawlessly. Like even when he went behind after lap one, it was 2 laps later, and he's back in the lead again with an absolute max attack, shall we say? Daring doesn't. He would do anything. He'll do anything to get back into the leader race, and he's just so persistent, and it is so impressive to watch. And like you say, we hadn't have been massive Max fans because of we didn't know whether he actually deserved what he'd won recently. But now you look at him and you think, okay. And it's like I said to you a couple of weeks ago, where you do have to start thinking about him being in the top five of all time, because now we are seeing the reasons why he is spoke about in that top five of all time.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that from my point of view, it wasn't that he didn't deserve these things, but it was more just, when you look at the stats and you'd see like 60 odd wins and the X amount of podiums, it was like, but how many of those did he just have the lead and drove off into the distance? How many of those did
Yeah.
he actually? There were we were literally we were in a time where we were watching races, and he would literally be seen at the start and when he crossed the line at the end because he had nothing else to do. And I
Well,
think it's now at a point where he's having to make overtakes. He's having to actually be involved a lot more. And therefore, if he's still coming out on top and winning them, fair play to him.
well, it's like I don't know. Is it since 2018 or is it 16? He's got more
More wins than
wins
Hamilton since
than Hamilton.
2016.
Yeah,
Hamilton
since
has since
2016.
now. Yeah, so that's impressive. And I think a lot of people sort of talk about Max Verstappen and how he's come out before and said, he can't see himself being in Formula One forever and things like that. But the way he's going, he will beat Lewis's records, which I don't obviously
What
want
what
to
what is
happen.
it now? What is it now? 61.
I think it's 61 wins and obviously Lewis 103. So he's more than halfway there.
Yeah, it's
And he's
only
only 26
40.
and he's only 26 years old, and Lewis Hamilton's 39. So
42 still to go.
he won't be. Max Verstappen won't be in Formula One when he's 39, but he can very easily sort of break this stat by within the
I
next two,
don't
3 years.
I don't Out of the 14 we've got left, I don't see him winning all 14,
No,
which is
I
good.
don't either.
Which is
Which is
good for the
good.
sport. I see him winning a maximum of 6 to 8, I think.
Oh, as in 6 to 8 more.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to
6
say.
to 8 more. I don't think he can win all 14 because of just how competitive the grid has now become. But I do see him winning another 6 to 8, preferably 6 because we have more race winners. But I'll put it in that bracket.
Do you think, just before we move on to Mercedes, then, do you think Perez can get one of those wins?
No,
No.
no, no. Hands down, no. I don't even need an explanation because you know the reasoning. No,
But let me ask you
not a
this:
chance.
it might sound stupid to others, but you'll give me a truthful response. Do you think he can get a podium?
Yes, but he'd need a lot to go his way because the cars
So
that
you
are
don't think
around him
he can
are
get a podium on raw pace?
no, no,
Wow.
because the cars around him have better, even though they are just as quick and have better drivers.
Okay, well there you go. You've heard it
I
there.
don't think you can
So
get it.
you've heard it there. So I'll make sure to get the meme ready for Austria when he finishes first. Moving on to Mercedes. Now, who'd have thought we'd be mentioning Mercedes before Ferrari? But we are. And listen, I don't want to speak too soon. And there's a lot to talk about Mercedes this weekend off of the track. In fact, actually, let's start with that first.
I
Now,
was going to say, surely we start with this because this is
absolutely
incredible.
So, for those who aren't aware, a WhatsApp, I think, or an email, either one, was sent to journalists in the F1 paddock. The same sort of thing that happened way back when at the start of the season when there was all the Christian Horner things leaks, and it was a big thing around the paddock that everyone had been sent the same sort of thing. This had happened in the Mercedes camp, saying that a so-called Mercedes employee, although the team boss Toto Wolff has come out and gone, this has got nothing to do with us. It will be some fan somewhere, and they're currently tracking the IP address down, and they've got the police involved. But was that saying that a so-called Mercedes employee has come out saying that the team have been trying to sabotage Lewis, and it's got to a point where it's seriously dangerous now because it could have, his car could malfunction or things like this, and obviously be quite serious for Lewis. So that's a big deal, right? Whether it's true or not, that is a big deal that has to be taken seriously and into consideration of, who is this person? If they are an employee, that's crazy. If they're not, how have they managed to get in contact with sort of every single journalist that's going to be in the paddock in Barcelona? It's become a mainstream headline, I should say. And to be fair, even Lewis has come out and said, I wouldn't really look too much into it, which I guess is good for Mercedes, that the source of the issue would come out and go, I wouldn't really bother.
Yeah.
But for the conspiracy theorists out there, we know Lewis has really struggled on Saturdays. In fact, Fridays he does really well, and then it comes to Saturday and something just doesn't seem to click for him. And it's just very coincidental, though, that this weekend, after this leak, he gets his first podium of the year.
Off raw pace as well. Like, he could actually put up a fight against Norris as well. He put up a strong fight. To the point where the only reason why I think Norris jumped him was due to strategy and pitting. I don't think he got him on track see, this is what I mean. I was at work. I watched the start of the race. You'd be proud of me. I managed to time my break perfectly to watch the first 10 minutes of the race.
Well,
that's the dedication. That is the dedication.
I mean, can I just say one thing that I found funny? I don't want to go too off course, but Martin Brundle wasn't there this weekend. So for his grid walk, something I've started to realise, whenever he's not there, they always get two people to do his job just because he's so good at it that no one else can replicate it. So I think they had Rachel Brooks and Karun down there, or it may have been Bernie Collins, either one of them.
Yeah, I did see the end of that. I think it was Bernie Collins, but it was just incredible to see that comes out, like you say, that comes out, and then all of a sudden, Lewis is the faster of the two Mercedes. And it's not like they had team orders not to fight or anything. George was trying to catch him. He was closing the gap a bit, and then the gap would extend, and that kept going back and forth. But Lewis was the quicker of the Mercedes, like by a decent chunk. And it was quite interesting to see that lead comes out, and it's like, maybe we've been caught out here. Let's try and push it back to normal.
Well, what would
as a massive Mercedes fan, how do you feel about it? Because I like Mercedes as well, but we all know that I lean more towards Ferrari. But as a massive Mercedes fan that you are,
well, listen.
give me your.
I think am I a massive Mercedes fan or am I a massive Lewis Hamilton fan? I think that's the first sort of thing you have to unpick. Don't get me wrong. During the championship years and the sort of camaraderie you'd see within the team, I loved it and it's great. And I'm not just saying, oh, because they're not winning anymore. I never liked it. That's not how I go about my things.
Yeah,
Obviously, McLaren I've always had love for because I'm from Woking. I'm in Woking right now. MCC is literally around the corner, and I'd love to work in Formula One full stop. But if I worked for McLaren, that would be sort of like a wholesome story for me. But no, I have always had a big affection for Mercedes and obviously everything they've done for and with Lewis and things like that. But I don't think when I first saw this, I went, oh my God, so it's true or anything like that, because I never really thought that this, I never really thought that that would be something they would do. But I definitely had been thinking throughout the year, there's no coincidence, excuse me, there's no coincidence that he does so well on a Friday and so well all the way up to Q2. And then all of a sudden, Q3, it's like, this is a 7-time world champion, eight, that is in the cockpit. He doesn't just forget how to drive in the last 12 minutes of a session. But I don't know
yeah,
if I think that I don't think I then meant that that means his car is being messed with. I don't know what I thought, but I definitely wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, someone's behind it somewhere. Like Cars 2 with the cameras and it strikes the car down. I never thought anything like that. But I must say, I do find it very funny that as soon as something has come out, all of a sudden he doesn't struggle, and it's like Lewis is back.
yeah. It's one of those things that you can put down as pure coincidence, or it's one of those things you put down as, well, they've been caught out. It's literally whatever way you look at it, and like I said, we'll never know. But it is interesting to think about. It is interesting to think about.
I do
But
agree, and I think from Mercedes' point of view, Hamilton qualifying P3, Russell P4, head of both Ferraris and Piastri, as we've mentioned, that in itself was, I think, a good qualifying. Said Hamilton struggles on his Saturday, so to be top three, not only top three, but that's the first time he's been top six in qualifying this year. It
yeah,
wasn't like, oh, P3 is his highest qualifying position, and he'd never even been in the top six. So
mm,
that's a big leap. That's a big jump for him. But then in the race, we have to talk about George Russell's start off the line, because I think that
well,
might be the best start of the year.
they always go on about how the second row in Spain, the slipstream you get out of it, because it's 11 seconds. They said it's 11 seconds to that turn one
One
braking
of the
spot.
longest straights on the calendar for, as in from where
Exactly,
you start, turn one.
and that start is just absolute. That is full send, and I'm so glad I watched it when I did, because I even put it in the group chat. I was like, oh my God, what a move! Because that is full send. There's a gap. I'm going for it. I don't care, and it was absolutely incredible. Round the outside of both Lando and Max, and you got to wonder what both of them were thinking at that time.
And
They're
even
battling
Lewis
each other.
there as well.
They're both battling each other at the time, and then all of a sudden, this silver arrow just flies past, and you got to be thinking, Jesus, fair enough, but incredible, incredible move, and
See, to me,
George is becoming on. George is coming
he,
on
he is
quite
big.
strong.
And by the way, are we putting Mercedes sort of up climb recently down to the new front wing?
Yeah, I think
That's the major change. But I mean,
Mercedes always struggled with mid-speed corners. So the high-speed corners they could deal with, the low-speed corners they could do it, but it was always the mid-speed corners. And a track like Spain has a lot of mid-speed corners. So Canada as well has a lot of mid-speed corners. Yeah, I think the new front wing has definitely helped. What is going to be interesting is how well they do in Austria, because Austria again is a lot of mid-speed and high-speed corners. There's not really many slow ones, and I think that Mercedes have had this new life breathed back into them, and I still don't think it's enough for, again, especially with how like the other teams go. I don't think it's enough for Lewis to get a win.
I mean, to be
But I
fair,
think
what I found really interesting was that, you know, P3 and P4 in the race as well. Hamilton's first podium of the year, 198th podium, 18th consecutive years on the podium. And Toto Wolff still was not happy with the result because Hamilton was 17 seconds behind Verstappen and George was 22. So they've made strides, but it wasn't enough. And I found that really interesting because at the start of the year, he'd have given anything for a podium. And all of a
that's the
sudden,
mentality that man has.
but exactly, that's the mentality they have.
And I think, then again, they look at it and they think, oh, we're 17 seconds behind Max and Lando. Them two are in a different category right now. Them two are in a different category, and them two are very much like how Max and Lewis were in 2021. You look at the rest of the grid are like 22, 25 seconds off of them, but them two are within 2 seconds of each other. Which means it could shape up so we have a similar sort of end to it, but I think there's too much of a gap. I think Lewis and Max, I think the most Lewis and Max were separated by was like, what, 40 points? Something like that. I don't think the gap ever got to 60. I mean, it might have. I don't know what the gap was because there was a point where we all thought it was done halfway through the year. But I think it could be a similar scenario.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting, and obviously this is back to back 3-4s now. Obviously in Canada it was Russell and Hamilton, now Hamilton Russell. They're I think if they can continue this throughout the season, I mean, we've so got a fight on our hands just in terms of race. I think maybe you have to park in the back of your mind that Max will win it again, and I think we said that from the start anyway. So even though it's slowly sort of changing now, you still have to accept that. But just the idea of going into a race weekend and knowing that he hasn't 100% got this in the bag, as in Max Verstappen,
Yeah.
it's just nice to think of. And it's not even like, oh, it's because there's one other driver. There's so many now. You know, we've had both Ferraris win a race. We've had Lando win a race. Oscar's bound to get there at some point. You know, he's already won a sprint race from last year in Qatar. So you've got that there. You've then got the fact that Mercedes might be back. You've had George Russell lead the first lap of the last two races. You've got Lewis Hamilton, who I'm sorry is Lewis Hamilton. So give him the opportunity, he will take it. You know, and I know you don't agree, but you have to also throw Sergio Perez in the mix because he does drive the Red Bull car. So all of a sudden, you've got 8 drivers there that can potentially go on to win races or win more races than they already have. That's just exciting. And I really sort of hope this period doesn't end and that we didn't look back and go, oh, I remember them, that 4 race weekends or something. You know, like that.
that prime, yeah.
Yeah, rest in peace. Like I'm trying to think, the first race that sort of started. Like rest in peace, Miami 2024, all the way to Spain
So
2024.
yeah, you'll be
But
missed.
you'll be missed, yeah. But listen, you just have to sort of take it as they come. But it's been really exciting so far, and I think Mercedes are. I'm not going to say well in the fight, but they are definitely no longer backmarkers in the sense
Yeah,
of the.
they're not mid table, no. They're
No,
not mid
exactly.
table anymore, no.
So, by the way, I just wanted to reference because I didn't say it. Everyone was on a 2-stop this weekend except Perez and I think Sonoda. I'm not too sure why Perez did a 3-stop. He didn't. Did he pit for like softs at the end or something? I mean, he didn't get fast. Slap that went to Lando. Not too sure if you maybe saw why that was. I know he got Gasly on the last lap. I don't. Maybe he had time for that or something.
No, I don't know either. It wasn't really spoken about in the highlights
No,
either.
no.
I don't.
No, it doesn't matter. I just thought I'd see if you knew
That is
maybe.
weird. That is weird.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't see it at the time. I was maybe a few pints down on celebrating your birthday point, but yeah, there you are. For all I knew, Perez won. But and I did say as well that I found it funny how Lewis got his first podium of the year on my birthday. So they coincidence
Yeah,
or not, you know.
yeah.
No, so that's good. That's good. Moving on to Ferrari. P5 and P6 in qualifying, P5 and P6 in the race. Now, there's a lot more to talk about Ferrari just with the fact that, they didn't have the greatest weekend because the drivers are at it. The drivers are
Yes.
at it. Now, talk to me a
They're,
little
they
bit whilst I try and find the quote, because there's a quote that has really got things heated up.
I think in general, I think Ferrari's qualifying poor, not poor, but like I said, the level of nature, the level of talent, and that's on the grid and stuff like that, and the competition. P5 and P6, you're still up there, you're still up with the rest of them. It's fine. And then moving into the race as well, it's the same sort of scenario. The level of competition, stuff like that. P5, P6, you're up there, you take it. Still good points in the champ. It's still good points for the constructors because both cars are up there. Whereas you've got Max at the top, Lando second, and then Perez and Oscar in below seventh. It is really now starting to boil over, and I've always said this was going to happen because there's more of a number one established driver now because it is Leclerc. But if you think about experience, it should be Sainz. And I think it is now as well. I don't think Sainz really cares anymore because he knows his fate. So it's very much him now doing his best to boost himself, realistically, I think.
Well, it was interesting. So obviously they had the little bit of contact, not massive, but enough to sort of bring it up a bit of talking point when Sainz initially got ahead of Leclerc. By the way, I think overtake of the weekend was, and I'm not being biased, was Hamilton's on Sainz. Sainz wasn't happy with it, but I think Sainz was the only person in the world that wasn't happy with it. So many people came out
Yeah.
and said that's an unbelievable overtake. But Leclerc came out and he said that, it's a bit of a shame. We'll speak internally. It's not that big of a deal. I understand it's his home race and a very important moment in his career. And he wanted to do something spectacular, but I just wasn't probably the right person to do that with. And he said it quite disgruntled, right? Science then come out, and let's just say that his thoughts weren't necessarily shared with Leclerc, to which he said, I think too many times he complains after a race about something. Obviously hot, he might think that. Honestly, at this point of the season, I don't know. I was on the attack. We were on a new soft. Mercedes were on a used soft, and we had to go on the attack in the first laps when you were on a new tyre and try past them. Like we said, even before the race, I passed Charles because I don't know if he had a mistake or was managing a bit too much. But he complains too much. Wow. To come out and say that into the media about your own teammate, he complains too much. That is big.
It's because it's like I said. It's because I don't think he cares anymore. I really don't think he cares. And I don't think this is going to be the last we see of the little Ferrari spout. I think this will go. I think this will go right until Science confirms his future.
Do you think
Because I
so?
think once Science confirms his future, we'll see him settle down and be more reserved because he wants to impress his employer. But at the moment, I think because he doesn't have a seat, he's like, well, I'm just going to do my own thing then. And I think that's what we are seeing.
So, I mean, a good stat for Science would be that every single home race that he's ever had, which is 10 Spanish Grand Prix, he has finished in the points in every single one of them. Although I don't think a single one of them have been a podium, so he might not be too interested in that stat. But yeah, it's also the only track in which he has a 100% scoring record in Formula One. So he's good, but he's maybe not quite where he wants to be yet. It's sort of Alonso heritage of, winning a Spanish Grand Prix, although I know his was in what they used to call the European one in Valencia. I think it's remarkable that Ferrari have got two drivers who have both won a race this year. One of them's going out the door. The other one is the so-called number one driver. and yet we'd never seen anything beforehand, really. But yet now we've slowly got something in the mixture of, this could be big, this could blow out to proportion. I'll be honest, I don't think it will, because they're so well media trained. It might not. That might have just been a bit of a
You
slip.
say that, and science
But
has turned around and said that, so I
well,
don't know.
exactly. So you don't know, and with, as you make a great point, science going out the door. Which, by the way, we still don't know which team that will be. But I all of a sudden now don't think it will be Williams. I think it could be Alpine. Now, because apparently Alpine are in talks with him.
But
Now,
what
Ocon's
team's better on paper for him? What team would he think is better?
Well, we will get to Alpine, and they seem to slowly be on the build. But I do think there could be some form of tension there, and I'm annoyed when we'll get to talk about our predictions. I had my top 5 at one point, and then it sort of deteriorated, and then with Leclerc getting back ahead of Sainz, I was a bit like, that's a shame. But that nevertheless, I think Ferrari definitely aren't going to be happy with their weekend. I don't think Fred Vasseur will be too knocked down about it. They've done a great job so far, and they will do so continuing going forward. It's funny for me as a Lewis fan. Obviously, what, you're a Lewis fan? You never said that before. It's funny how now Mercedes sort of showing a little bit of better pace and finishing better than Ferrari, which is great. But then he's got to go to Ferrari next year, and it's like, can you come like first and second each week, please?
But I think that's just that's more just because of every team's going to have that, isn't they? Every team's going to have a week where they don't do as well as they should be. Everyone's going to have a blip. So I don't think he'll be worrying about that at all. I think he'll be fine with that.
But do you reckon then going? So obviously, this weekend was the start of the triple header of Spain, Austria, and then the mighty Silverstone. Which we did a preview episode last year, me and you, just because of how much like it means. It's like, people may say we're biased, but genuinely feels like the best weekend on the calendar. Everything of the build up from like even Wednesday, when if you actually go to Silverstone and all the festival atmosphere, but the Thursday, the F1 show. Listen, mate, if you can't already tell, I am so buzzing for it. But it's the start of the triple header weekend, so it's exciting times to follow, because major upgrades probably not so much in a triple header weekend where you can't really go back to the factories. Even though, to be fair, we are in the European season, the sort of cars will probably sort of be quite similar up to Silverstone. So Ferrari can't allow that to be the case, because they're going to lose out on loads of points in the Constructors' Championship to McLaren, maybe now even to Mercedes.
I think Ferrari are going to bounce back in Austria. I think, yeah, I think Ferrari are going to bounce back in Austria and then probably have another 6 Silverstone. But I always remember Ferrari do quite well in Austria. From what I can remember, they always do quite well. So I think
Leclerc pole position, I don't think would be off the table. And you have to remember, before his win in Monaco this year, his last win was in Austria. So
I don't think he could get a pole, because I think it suits the Red Bull and the McLaren more. But I do definitely think he could easily get in the top 3. Absolutely.
Okay. That's
my early prediction.
Okay, nice. Okay, I'll remember that. Moving on to Alpine in qualifying. First time this season, both drivers made it into Q3. So they are on the up. What's the word? Up trajectory. What is that? Is that it? I'm trying to use big words I can't use.
They're on the right trajectory.
They're on the right trajectory. That's it, I think.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm trying to use big words that I can't use. So Gasly P7, Ocon P9. Ocon obviously moved up to P8, so they were behind each other on the grid. Good for them. And not only so, because they both finished in the points as well. Yes, they moved back, but P9 and P10, that's 3 points for them, which moves them up in the constructors' standings. It's good. It's slow progress, but it's steady progress. And at the end of the day, it's progress.
any points when you're one of the back marker teams, you're obviously going to take. And yeah, it's good progress for them. It's just whether they can keep it up. That's the thing. It is all just down to whether they can keep up or not. That's how I see it.
Do you think that obviously we had the massive incident in Monaco with Ocon and Gasly, and there may still be, and probably will still be, a lot more drama to come out of it. But do you think that maybe Ocon's just got his head down now and just sort of doesn't really want any more issues and just wants to get on with the end of the season because he knows he's got a seat elsewhere for next year?
Yeah, but does he have that's the thing. Does he have a seat next year? I don't know. I don't know who would take him. That's the only thing.
I
I
think
don't
I
know who would
heard that
take him.
he's having talks with Haas. I mean, we pretty much know Ollie Behrman's got one side of that garage, but with Hulkenberg also going out and Magnussen. Well, actually, do you know what? That's a really good point. I know we haven't got to Haas yet, but it's just reminded me he got another penalty this weekend. Both Haas drivers did, but Magnussen got another penalty for a false infringement at the start. But I don't think he got any penalty points because I remember seeing that at the time, and I said to my mate, "He's got another penalty. If he gets more points, that's it. He's out for Austria."
I think you only get penalty points if you actually like cause a collision or something like that. I
Right,
don't.
right.
I
Well, but
don't
there you are,
because
Will.
that's
Another penalty for him.
that. Yeah, I think the penalty points are given for dangerous driving, um, rather than infringements. Uh, because I know a false start is technically an infringement, but it's not. You know, I think did he jump forward, then stop, and then go again, or did he just go?
Well, I'm not too sure. I suppose the only issue with watching it in a bar is just that you have a little bit of sound, but not really enough, and obviously it's a loud environment. So no, I didn't
Hmm.
see or hear anything that happened. I just saw the 5 second penalty thing come across the top, and as soon as I saw it as Magnussen, I was like, "You've got to be joking! What's the guy doing?" But I did. If you haven't seen, by the way, TrackSide Twitter. And please go and follow us on the social TrackSide Pod F1, TikTok as well, especially because we like putting clips out on there. I did a clip where however close to the camera you are, you like the driver, and however further away you are, obviously you don't. And I did Magnussen's. He was the last driver on the list, right? 10,000 views on Instagram Reels as well, so thanks for that. I split it into 3 sections, so I stood at the back, in the middle, and at the front, because my my sort of feelings towards K-Mag change all the time. You've got a Canada where he's driving through the field and you think, go on, K-Mag. You've got times in Miami where he's like, even though being a bit of an international war crime criminal, he's actually making it exciting. And then you've got other times where you just think, what are you doing, mate?
He is one of the most erratic drivers on the grid, and he does make it entertaining. But I don't. Yeah, I don't think he'll have a seat next year. I mean, he might because he's a good team player.
Be so careful though, even this year, because I don't really know how it works. If you miss a race, I don't think I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this, but I don't think it's like, oh, you could just replace him. I think it means you have to run one car. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure. I don't know
think
that,
it
but it's
is.
it would be catastrophic for Haas, and just for him as well because it's not a regular thing. It's not like NBA where you got technical fouls and sort of it seems to sort of happen, or football where everyone gets yellow carded and sent off, and games like I'm thinking the last time a person got a driver ban probably like Pasta Maldonado or something.
It
So
was. Yeah.
it's
I,
not
I
it's very rare.
I don't know if you. I think yeah, you have to field one car, which for a team like Haas at the back of the grid is huge. Because again, any points matter. Any points matter. But yeah, I think the penalty points are given for like dangerous driving and stuff like that, rather than just technical infringements.
Well, I
So I
might as
don't think you
well
could get
mention.
one.
Yeah, I might as well mention Haas. Hulkenberg qualified P13, and Magnus unfortunately was out in Q1 in P16. And then in the race, Hulkenberg 11th. Again, he loves that 11th place. A bit like Sonoda a couple of years back, where it's just 11th, 11th, 11th. And K-Mag dropping down to 17th laps as well. Just not really their weekend. And I think they'll be disappointed because I saw a graph leading into qualifying, and Haas were the fifth best team on pace. So they will be disappointed with that. I
Hey,
promise.
what?
Yeah. I wish
Damn.
I could show you in
Yeah, but
this, but
we knew that because if you every Saturday when you see them over 1 lap pace, they're always in the top 10.
well,
But then
Hulkenberg.
as soon as
Yeah.
that car gets any sort of fuel on it, it becomes a boat.
Mm,
It's a
mm.
genuine boat. So
Yeah, that's the thing.
it's
But
weird.
I think they'll be disappointed with their weekend. Aston Martin, home favourite. Alonso not even getting into Q3. He was P11 again. Started P10. And Stroll P14. Your favouriteest driver in the entire world. But I think Alonso will be so disappointed, not even finishing in the points. P12, Stroll P14. Aston Martin have completely fallen back off to where they were this time last year. Um, and I, I don't think enough people talk about it. I still am shocked that Alonso signed that contract extension. I thought this would be it for him. Maybe he didn't have any other options because I
Unless
don't
again he
have traction to Aston Martin anymore.
unless again he knows something. Do you remember when it got announced he was leaving Alpine to go Aston Martin? We were all like, "What are you doing?" Unless he knows something. What is blood cooking? That is the question. What
Yeah,
is
no,
he
it's true.
cooking?
It's true. It is true. There might be something there that we're not sure about. I do want to ask you about Lance Stroll though, FP3 going straight into Lewis Hamilton. What's he doing?
What do you mean? What's he doing? It's Lance Stroll. It's what more do I need to say that I've already said? The man should not be in the sport, and it's not only me who thinks it. It's everyone. Everyone
Mm,
thinks it.
I know it's
It's just
hard because
awful.
you know how at the minute in football, there's sort of a bit of backlash between the pundits being quite negative towards the England camp being asked about it, them coming out and saying to the likes of Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, you need to remember you were in our position once, and then they come back and go, we don't want to be negative, we just have to do our job. I know we're not to that level where we're ex drivers in the actual media, but I don't want to sit here and say, oh, I don't like this person, I don't like that person, this, that, and the other, because I want to work in the sport one day, and at the end of the day, all 20 of them are there for a reason. But I really do struggle with Lance Stroll, what he is bringing to Formula One, and and it really doesn't help that your dad owns the team, mate. It doesn't, because it's just there for everyone to see that that's the only reason you're there.
Also, as well, before he joined F1, he was in F2, weren't he?
Yes,
Did he win anything in F2?
Olly would have been the person to ask that question to. And maybe was it F2 or would he have been in GP2? I'm not too sure, but I mean, I remember when he went to Williams and he got that podium in Azerbaijan where Bottas beat him to the line. He's obviously had the pole position in Turkey, but uh, for the last 2 years, I'm sorry, like even last year when he probably had the best car he's ever had in his life. Not a single podium.
Sums
Yeah.
it up. It sums it up. And I don't know how we get him out. How do we get this man out? I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know what Aston Martin are thinking. If they ever want to be competitive, then they need someone better.
I would agree with that.
But we all know that.
Racing Balls, or the Visa Cash App, or the V Carb, or whatever you want to call them. Very disappointing weekend. Now, Danny Rick 15th in qualifying wouldn't really batter an eyelid at that, but it was Yuki Tsunoda P19. That's what really caught me. That's what really caught me off guard. Sorry. Ricardo P18 in qualifying, Tsunoda P17 in qualifying, both out in qualifying. But Tsunoda not getting out Q1 really surprised me. And then him finishing P19, I was shocked. Yuki's been really great this year, and even if he hasn't made the points, he's finished right on the outside in the P11 position. He's shown great promise this year. Don't know what happened to RBs this weekend, and especially to Yuki.
I feel like it's just one of those weekends again. So,
Cool, you yawned
um,
quite a lot today.
mate, I woke up and I don't know. You know when you wake up and you think, oh, I ain't got the I haven't got. You just wake up and you think, oh, today you're just gonna feel sluggish. Just, well, I think work yesterday might have just killed me, and then
Well,
woke up. I was like, whoa.
I went and watched. If you can't already see it in the face, I mean, it might help that I've got a dodgy camera on this one compared to my usual one because I'm so burnt. Watching my mate play golf for 5 hours in the regional qualifying for the Open, and I'm burnt to a crisp.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's just one of those days where you think, whoa, need to wake up a bit. But I'll be. I'm thriving. I'm here. I think it's just one of those weekends for RB. You know, we know they're not the best team, and let's be honest, Sonoda has dragged that car further than it probably should be sometimes, and he can only do so much. And when this happens, I don't think it's that big of a deal for him personally because I feel like he's just going to bounce back next week and get like an eighth or seventh or something like that. It'd be quite interesting, but yeah, I'd love to hear Ollie's thoughts about Danny Rick being P15 though. That'd be quite funny. That would be quite funny.
Yeah, he's probably screaming through when he's watching this, screaming through the phone or wherever he's watching it, going, "Yeah, he's this, he's that," or whatever. But not his best weekend yet again. I'm afraid. Slowly, sort of finishing up the stake cars, Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou. I've sort of made a little bit of a conversation around Guan Yu Zhou in this last sort of races where I'm slowly starting to get on his back a bit with the thinking of he seems to go under the radar so much, but he needs to be called out a bit more. What's he bringing? What's he doing? But he did get out of Q1 this weekend, which I think was either the first time in a long time. I remember in the first race of the year he finished 11th, so I imagine he probably would have got out of Q1 in Bahrain. He qualified P15, and his teammate Valtteri Bottas qualified P12. So good in qualifying, and then in the race itself, Guan Yu Zhou finished 13th, Bottas 16th. So not too bad, I suppose. Obviously, still without a point this season. Uh, it was P13 was Zhou's best finish since his P11th at the start of the year. But realistically, mate, what are you saying about Stake? Only one of the two teams yet to score.
I still really like the car. I still stand by the car. Looks great. I will stand by it until the end of the year. Um, yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. Do you ever see them getting a point this season?
I would see Bottas sneaking a P10 if there was like 6 retirements, but that's about it.
The best opportunity they could have got a point probably would have been Canada if just gone.
Mm, yeah, I mean there will be a race at some point where you know you've got them
You need
races
another.
where. So the reality is you've got to look now at the way the top 10 will work. You'll have 8 drivers who are sort of really guaranteed, right? Both Ferrari, both McLaren, both Mercedes, both Red Bull. You've then got 9 and 10th. That was taken by Alpine this weekend. It will probably be taken up by a Yuki Tsunoda, an Alpine car, or a Fernando Alonso, or Nico Hulkenberg. Those sort of drivers. Realistically, I want to say Albon, but obviously it's not really happened yet for him this year. Those sort of drivers. So therefore, you need to take out at least 3 or 4 of those top 8 I mentioned out of the equation. You need sort of the front 2 into turn 1 to crash. You need like third and fourth to get caught up in it. Though that's the sort of race you need a hungry 2021. Everyone sort of clatters into each other at the start, and then the others go through.
Yeah, or like a Zandvoort last year where it
Exactly.
was absolutely chucking down. You need something just to level the playing field. But
Exactly
I think
that.
Canada was the best. Canada was the best chance of that happening because we've still got Spa to come, haven't we?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Spa could rain, Hungary could rain, Austria could rain. It's rained in Austria before.
It's true. It's true. It's very true. And
Silverstone. There's
very,
ways that actually, to be fair, I don't think we'll have rain at Silverstone because the next 2 weeks we're supposed to have a heat wave, so that could be
yeah,
quite
but a heat
interesting.
wave always will end in massive rainstorms.
That is true.
So
That's true. So yeah, we could have a leveler coming very soon, but I think that's what they need. They need something to level the playing field.
absolutely. Apologies if you can hear my dog barking, by the way. And finally, Williams. Very disappointing yet again for Logan Sargent. Qualified last, finished last. Albon qualified P19, and in the race he could only salvage P18.
Did you see? Did you see David Coulthard
Yeah, please explain.
bantering Logan Sargent?
Hilarious.
Because they did I can't remember what they were doing, but I think they were like the back of the paddock or something like that, and they found a
God,
Mercedes, the car park of the drivers. They found a Mercedes that was actually touching a bollard that it was parked up against, and it turned out to be Logan Sargent's car. And DC pointed it out and was like, Sargent already making contact before we even got on track. So I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Even the grid. As a driver, if that happens to you, like, you're gonna be thinking, wow, I've been
yeah,
mugged off here.
I know that's it was funny. It's the sort of
Yeah.
thing Ted Kravitz would say. So to come from DC, I thought that was quite funny as well. Yeah, but that's sort of your race weekend. There'll be so many great overtakes. I mean, the one where Verstappen got Russell back, I thought with Russell involved, I thought we were going to have contact. Fair play to both drivers, there wasn't. The Russell start was great, as mentioned. There's a Norris pole position in there. There's the first podium for Lewis of the year. First back-to-back Spanish Grand Prix, no retirements. There was, I think, a lot, and I think, as I said, I was watching with my mate in the bar at the time. There are those periods where you have to go 10 laps at a time, where you just have to accept nothing's really happening. I think Red Bull set another 1.9 pit stop. Overall, it's definitely not going to go into the history books, but I can accept it. It's enough for me to warrant it a good race.
It's the Kickstarter for what could be an incredible next 14 races.
No,
And
I agree with that.
we thought Canada was the Kickstarter. I think this is the real start of something that could be absolutely pure entertainment.
No,
Pure
absolutely.
entertainment.
You know, for McLaren as well, they do have to look at the positives, and I know they will, because it's now they've been on the podium 6 consecutive races, which is their longest run since 11-12, when I think it would have been Lewis and Button, Hamilton and Button. So that's incredible. Norris has now moved up to second in the driving championship for the first time in his career, and he's the only driver to finish in the points in every race as well. So there's a lot to sort of look up to. But yeah, I mean, Verstappen, he took the championship lead after winning the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix, and he's not lost it since. That's 763 days he's been top of the Drivers' Championship, which is crazy. He's now had 106 podium finishes, which ties with Alain Prost and Fernando Alonso for 4th on the all-time list.
What's crazy is
Crazy.
Lando is a Max DNF away from being right back in it. And that is the crazy thing, and it has happened. It has happened.
It is. 60 points is a lot, because effectively you'd need like 3 DNFs to even then lose your lead. That's why I'm not really certain that it's going to be tight, but it's more a case of he can't win every race weekend. That's sort of where I'm at in terms of, that I think championship will still be his. Just very quickly take a look at said Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. Obviously, as we know, Max is still leading on 219 points, and then second is Lando on 150, so 69 points there. Leclerc in third, and Sainz in fourth. Perez fifth, Piastri sixth, Russell seventh, Hamilton eighth, and then Fernando and Yuki round out the top 10. Zhou, Bottas, and Sargent still yet to score. And Constructors' Championship, we've got Red Bull on 330, 50 behind on 270. We have Ferrari. Then only 47, 57, 60, only 33 behind in third is McLaren. And then Mercedes are now slowly sort of building up the points as well, 151 in fourth. You've got Aston Martin in fifth on 58, RB in sixth on 28. Alpine overtake Haas into seventh with 8, and Haas are in eighth with 7. Williams in ninth with 2, and Sauber, as I said, yet to score. Did I say Williams earlier on had yet to score? I think I did, and I apologise for that because that isn't true. Albon obviously has taken 2 points, so I apologise for that. Sauber are the only team yet to score. So there you have it. That is sort of the Spanish Grand Prix round up. Everything that sort of happened took place. Our recording this a day later than we normally do. And obviously, we are without Ollie. I've tried making clips. I'm hoping that he's able to sort of put them out and do what he can do. Because we don't want gaps. But before we finish, hang on a minute. Who's your driver of the day?
Oh, driver of the day. Driver of the day. I'm gonna go for Hamilton. I'm gonna go for Hamilton.
Respect, because I'm getting a little bit annoyed that Norris gets it every week. Like he's clearly got that.
That's what I was gonna say.
He's got that fan base, doesn't he?
It needs to stop realistically. Like the Norris driver of the day glazing needs to stop. It's just
Glazing, that's a good word.
Lando Norris bottled a lead, but because half the fan base is teenage girls, we're gonna give him driver of the day. Yay! Shut up.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was correct. I think, but I would have understood if Verstappen got it. Personally, would have given it to Lewis. Wouldn't be too opposed if it went to Russell just because of the start, but then obviously he has fallen back to P4. So yeah, I'm giving mine to Lewis as well. That's where mine would have gone this weekend. Predictions League. There you go. We haven't got a jingle yet, so there's my little jingle. I'm actually a little bit annoyed Ollie's not here because the man deserves some slander. Olly King, you had the opportunity to pick up some points because you are a little bit behind me and Will, but that's okay, right? We've still got a long way to go. You took that and decided to score 1 point over the course of the entire weekend. You scored nothing in qualifying yet again, and you got 1 point for Leclerc coming 5th. So you are still firmly in 3rd with 30 points, and you need to up your game, sunshine. You really do.
What's crazy is we have a sprint weekend coming up. We do,
and there's a lot of expectation on me because I will be in Vienna. No, we're talking about this weekend. Sorry, my apologies. I will be back in Wembley, and on the Saturday, I'm doing something with my mates for my birthday a week later because obviously Taylor Swift was in Wembley this weekend.
Yeah, you could not be anywhere near that.
For me to still get predictions and get things out, even though I won't even be watching probably sprint race or qualifying, which I'm going to be gutted about. Definitely
I won't be watching either.
It's hard, man. To any of you people out there, don't grow up. Just stay just watch Formula One at the weekend because I still absolutely try my best. I try and make it can't do this because I'm watching the F1, but unfortunately life will get ahead of that sometimes. But yes, Ollie is in 3rd with 30 points. Now, I'm one to talk because I also didn't score in qualifying, but Mr. William Smith scored 2.
I got 2 in quality.
So going into Sunday, we had a new leader of the Predictions League, and that was Mr. William Smith. He took the lead by 1 point because he had Norris 1st and Verstappen 2nd. So therefore, we come to the race weekend.
And if I'm correct,
Will scored 3 points, which meant that his lead was 4. So Ben needed to score 4 or more to tie the lead at least. So he would have lost his clear advantage, but he was still being joint top. And he only went and done it. He scored 4 points. Un, dos, tres, cuatro. There is a joint lead in the championship, but he still holds his record. Now, I need to look back in the history books because I don't think I've not been on the top step since, like, Australia or Japan.
what was crazy was when Leclerc was chasing Russell. If he'd have got him, I
Yeah,
would have had four,
no,
and
no,
you would have had three.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
because he didn't, I was like, oh my god, I could have been because I was like going into that, I was like, oh
But
my god, I'm ahead by one.
but like I said, if Science had finished ahead of Science had finished ahead of Leclerc, I'd have had another clean sweep, and to do that after you got a clean sweep last week would have been so sweet. Because imagine that how amazing that would be to sort of go like it'd be like that PDC World Championship final between Michael Smith and was it
Gerwin,
Michael van Gerwen?
yeah,
They're
the
both on for a
both
nine
on
carter.
nines, yeah,
Both on
both on
nines.
for
I
double
can't
points.
speak. I can't speak. So yeah,
Yeah,
there you
that'd have
go.
been impressive. Yeah,
Me
that would
and
have been
you are
really
tied
cool.
on 41 points, and Ollie has 30. So he's 11 behind. Of course, that doesn't sound as much of a big gap because you get a
There's
double.
20 up for grabs. There's 20 up for
Exactly.
grabs.
But going into a sprint weekend like Austria, there's 40 up for grabs.
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
So
I forgot.
it's
There's quality as well.
Ollie could have the last laugh, right? He could have 40 points up, and all of a sudden he's over 50% ahead of us at the end of
Yeah,
Austria.
it's
So
crazy.
this championship is still wide open. But for me, the fact that I don't think I have been, if I'm being honest, I don't think I have been off the top step since Japan, which is 7 race weekends ago. So it's
We got our own 2021 going on here.
we do.
This is close.
We
This is
really do. We're
close.
gonna have to get the half points out at some point. But no, I am. I'm excited about this. It's good fun to do as well, like keeping track of it. I like the graphic that I make for it. It's good fun. So, nevertheless, that was the Spanish Grand Prix. I know there wasn't a lot out on the socials. We are still trying our best. We're not. I can tell you right now, this isn't something we're sort of sacking off because it means a lot to us to do. Unfortunately, just some other things get in the way. But Mr.
Life
William
comes
Smith,
first, isn't it?
exactly. Been a pleasure and privilege to see you today. It's nice for me to be back. Obviously, I did miss my first ever race. I know I still got some clips included, but it doesn't really count. And it's such a shame that I actually sent Ollie voice notes of the predictions league from last week that I want him to play to you on the pod because I did a whole big like, oh, I'm still leading, and he didn't play them, and I was gutted.
Yeah, you
I
must
was
have forgot.
gutted.
Yeah.
But, oh well, there you go. You do join me on the top step for now. And as you said, we go into a sprint weekend, so looking forward to that. But thank you very much to those who have watched, listened. Apologise if maybe it wasn't the greatest quality as it used to. I haven't got my mic, the lower resolution computer. Got to make the best of it. We'll be back in the flat for Austria. And until then, please go follow on all our social medias, TrackSide Pod F1. If there's anything you'd like to say, Will, please go ahead now. If not, thank you very much for watching.
Go on, Ben. Give me early predictions for who's winning Austria. Go on.
Lewis Hamilton.
End it. End it there. End it there. End it.
Thank you very much. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.